Welcome back to the channel, folks, where today we look at another spring plant in the spring of 2026. The plant that we are looking at today is the common English bluebell or Hyacinthoides non-scripta, which is a plant in the family Asparagaceae, the Asparagus family, which is ironic given the potential toxicity of bluebell. In today's episode, we will be focusing on the differences between the English or native bluebell and the Spanish Bluebell Hyacinthoides hispanica and its hybrid and its impact on UK populations. Bluebells are amongst the most quintessential British spring flowers, with their bright blue colour and fragrant smell penetrating the English woodlands in early spring. The deep purple narrow bell with curled fringes, each containing within the sepals 6 creamy white anthers and sweet aroma, make the bluebell readily recognisable. The distinctive deep purple flowers droop distinctively on one side of the flower stem, giving a distinctive appearance. The fruit of bluebell consists of a globular capsule of about 10 to 15 millimeters, and each capsule contains 3 seeds, which are black and approximately 3 to 4 millimeters in size. Bluebell is known by a number of straightforward common vernaculars, namely bluebell, common bluebell, English bluebell, fairy flowers, blue bottles. And as pointed out, it is a member of the family Asparagaceae, or the Asparagus family. The Latin binomial is straightforward, with the prefix hyacinthoides, meaning hyacinth-like, from hykynthos, a young prince loved by Apollo and transformed into a flower after his death. The suffix non-scripta translates to unlettered or unmarked, which was used to differentiate it from the classical hyacinth of Greek mythology. Before we embark on our journey into the field, we look at the features and characteristics which will enable us to identify and find it in the field. As always, we include a detailed botanical slide for those of you who may wish to study the plant in more detail, and which can be stopped at any point. To summarise, the bluebell is a member of the family Asparagaceae, or the Asparagus family, and it is a bulbous perennial growing between 20 and 50 centimetres in height. It is an indicator of ancient woodland, and the habitat consists of deciduous woodland in early spring on usually light acid soil. The inflorescence of bluebells are usually violet blue, pink or occasionally white, and the flowers are scented and produced in clusters along the flower stalk, known as racemes, which droop. The bluebells have a distinctive bell shape and a perianth with 6 petals. The petals curl back at the edges, enhancing their bell-like appearance, and are generally narrow. They contain 6 stamens and a slender style with a stigma. The ovary of bluebells are inferior or epigynous, meaning it is positioned below the attachment points of all our floral parts, such as the petals and sepals, as is in the case of orchids and fuchsias. The bracts are 2 bluish under each flower, and the fruit and seed consists of a capsule about 10 to 15 millimeters and is almost globular, splitting into 3. The seeds are blackish and 3 to 4 millimeters in diameter. Bluebells flower and are at their best between the months of March and May. Bluebell is a species of deciduous broad-leafed woodland over much of the range, and prefer semi-open canopy, flowering and leafing early before the canopy closes in late spring. Of all the places in the world, the bluebell is unique to Western and Northwestern Europe, and it is said that there are between 20 and 50% of the world's bluebells are located within Britain and Ireland. It takes between 5 and 7 years for bluebells to develop from seed to flowers. It takes between 5 and 7 years from seed to flower, and the following are general threats to the well-being of the species: trampling and inappropriate secondary pathways, picking of flowers and uprooting of bulbs, and the impact of the invasive species known as the Spanish Bluebell, Hyacinthoides hispanica, and any relevant diseases. The Spanish Bluebell, a Garden Escapee, readily hybridizes with our native bluebells, forming an intermediate hybrid which potentially can breed out important features such as scent and colour. The conservation of this important species is therefore achieved through statutory protection via acts such as the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, Section 13, Schedule 8, links in description, which makes it an offence to pick, uproot or sell the plant in any form. Whilst fungal diseases do not make a major impact on our UK native population of bluebell, we should be aware that there is a plant-specific rust known as the bluebell rust, otherwise known as Euromyces muscara, which affects the long leaves of the bluebell, making them yellow and filling them with raised dark brown tilia. On the next occasion, on observing bluebells, should you find the rust, you could also record it. Returning now to the Garden Escapee, the Spanish Bluebell or Hyacinthoides hispanica, we are now going to compare and contrast the identification features. It is worth noting that the resulting hybrid between native bluebell and Spanish bluebell, Hyacinthoides x massartiana, has features of both plants, making it on occasions difficult to differentiate. The following is a table of differences between the native bluebell on the left and the Spanish bluebell on the right. So let's work through the differences in slow time. The first thing to note about the pollen colour is that it's creamy white anthers in the native bluebell and blue in the Spanish. Well, that is the case in an ideal world, but observers of the plant should be aware of any confusion should the Spanish bluebell shed its blue pollen, leaving a white anther behind. The next distinguishing feature is the shape and size of the leaves. The leaves of the native bluebell are long and thin, whereas the leaves of the Spanish bluebell are much broader and more succulent and larger in size. The next characteristic we look at is the arrangement of the flowers on the stem. In the case of the native bluebell, we see the flowers on one side of the stem drooping over on a raceme, whereas in the Spanish bluebell, the flowers are much paler and arranged in conical fashion spirally around the stem. The next feature that we look at is the colour and shape of flowers. In the case of the native bluebell, they are a deep purple in colour, and the petal bell or tube is narrow and closed, and the edges of the tube curl backwards. In the case of the Spanish bluebell, the petals are much more open and the flowers are a much paler colour. It should be also noted that the native bluebell is fragrant and the Spanish bluebell is without scent. And finally, to reiterate, the pollen on the anthers of the native bluebell is white and creamy, and those on the Spanish bluebell blue. There are other potential confusion species less likely to be confused, such as the squills, the grape hyacinth and the wild hyacinth. So let's take a look at the plant from its unfolding in early spring to the setting of its seed later in the season. Well folks, that's it from me on this short tour of the Bluebell. Thank you again for watching. If you have liked or enjoyed this video or find it interesting or educational, please like, share and subscribe to help bring the next in the series. Once again, in the words of Maggie, our international symbol of floral appreciation, whatever the weather may be, go outdoors and enjoy it.